Federal Drive is presented by GEHA, Government Employees Health Association, proudly providing health and dental benefits to federal employees and their families. Visit GEHA.com.
As Congress works to finalize the fiscal 2026 defense policy bill, Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren is calling out a leading industry group for trying to block bipartisan right-to-repair efforts that would give soldiers the ability to fix their own equipment. Federal News Network's Anastasia Obis is here to help us sort it out. Anastasia, thanks for joining me.
Hi, Terry.
Refresh us on this right-to-repair push. What's behind it?
Yeah, so the military services have long struggled with contract-imposed restrictions on how they can repair and maintain their own equipment. Too often, they're dependent on original manufacturers to come in and fix whatever is broken, and that usually takes a long time and it usually costs a lot of money. So the Army actually has recently been leading the way on this issue since they announced their Army Transformation Initiative. And as part of that transformation, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth directed the Army to incorporate right to repair provisions in all new and existing contracts. That's an undertaking, and especially incorporating it into existing contracts. But Army Secretary Dan Driscoll has been very vocal about the challenges that soldiers face when it comes to repairing their own equipment. So, for example, at AUSA in October, he talked about Lockheed-owned Black Hawk helicopter to illustrate how contractor restrictions drive up the costs. So he said the manufacturer refuses to repair or replace a small screen control knob, and when it breaks, it grounds the aircraft. That forces the Army to purchase an entire new screen, and that costs $47,000. And he said that the Army could make that knob for $15. So the right to repair efforts and reforms have been gaining a lot of momentum and bipartisan support from Congress. There were some efforts last year. They failed. But this year, both the Senate and the House have their provisions in their versions of the 2026 NDAA.
So Senator Warren is calling out the National Defense Industrial Association specifically here. What is their position and why is she concerned?
Yeah, well, she argues that NDAA's opposition is rooted in protecting contractor profits and kind of not genuine concerns about innovation, which is how NDAA frames it. The industry group published a white paper recently. It's called Protecting DoD's Access to Innovation, and in it, they criticize the proposals from the House and the Senate. Warren says that the organization's opposition is, and I quote, dangerous and misguided attempt to protect an unacceptable status quo of giant contractor profiteering. She says that the organization is attacking these reforms with vague and threatening claims that don't really stand up to scrutiny.
Isn't right to repair part of the acquisition reforms that Hegseth announced a couple of weeks ago that reflect what Congress has drafted in the NDAA?
It's something that is in the Army Transformation Initiative, and the things that the House and the Senate are proposing are a little bit different. They're kind of approaching it from different angles, but it's kind of attacking the same issue.
And so what is NDIA's complaint? What are they worried about?
They say, so the Senate wants contractors to have instructions for continued operation readiness. So the Senate wants contractors to provide DoD with instructions for continued operational readiness. That would include things like data, tools, and software for operations, maintenance, installation, and training. And basically, NDIA says that could include sensitive data and IP it could include sensitive data and proprietary technical information. They're saying that this proposal would allow DoD to provide those parts, tools, and information to any authorized third party, and that third party could be the company's direct competitor. So basically, NDAA is saying this will hamper innovation, and as a consequence, companies will not want to do business with DoD because of those concerns of IP disclosure. Warren says that the complete opposite is true. Small businesses have come out and said that the right to repair law would create new business opportunities. Multiple associations have endorsed the reforms, saying that this would actually foster innovation because currently big defense contractors have vendor locked several DoD programs and kind of have monopolized the market of sustainment. And so Warren is kind of saying that the argument that this would deter companies from working with DoD is not supported in reality. And I quote, "It's a late in the game effort meant to confuse and scare members of Congress and muddy the terms of the debate."
NDIA represents a big chunk of the defense industry sector. What are folks outside the NDIA wall saying about the back and forth between them and Congress?
Yeah, they're saying this is kind of the latest iteration of a decades-long debate. The government has historically demanded more access to data than it needed. Industry has been zealously protecting its IP and tech data rights, so there's a lot of mistrust between the two parties. Someone who spoke with the Senate staff said they don't agree with NDIA's characterization because it's almost kind of dealing with perception here. But ultimately, the concerns from NDIA and more broadly, conditions for access should be addressed from the very start instead of addressing them when there is a crisis.
So, Anastasia, is it the expectation that this will sort of get resolved as the National Defense Authorization Bill gets conferenced and passed in Congress?
Yeah, we'll see what they come up with. But I think there is a lot of support for what the House and the Senate are proposing.
Well, there's much to watch there. That's Federal News Network's Anastasia Obis. Anastasia, thanks for bringing us this story.
Thank you, Terry.
You can find her story at federalnewsnetwork.com.